How you doing, guys? We're always talking about equipment and gold and silver and weapons and all sorts of other stuff that we may not want other people to be able to find super easily, whether that's, it doesn't matter who, police or whatever, robbers, doesn't matter. We're always talking about stuff that you may want to keep from being able to be seen and found readily. But not a lot of people talk about exactly how to do this, how to hide stuff. So that's something that I want to go over today. I'm not an expert on the subject, but I do have a lot of ideas on it, and I've had practice with it in the past, just hiding stuff, and I have a lot of stuff that I personally don't want to be found too easily. So I've managed to come up with some creative ways, I think, of doing this. I'm not going to talk specifically about direct examples. What I want to talk about is principles that you want to follow when hiding something. Because I can go out there and tell you, oh, this may be a good spot right here, or this may be a good spot right here. But if you don't have those exact spots in your home or on your property, then it's not going to directly carry over. So it's kind of like the whole teach a man to fish thing versus teach him how to fish. So instead of teaching you where to hide, exactly, I'm going to teach you what I think how you should hide. Now, before I go over that, I wanted to talk about some specifics. The specifics that I am going to go over are things that you shouldn't, or places that you shouldn't try to hide things. And those are places where a lot of people hide things, and because they seem like a good idea, but maybe they were a good idea, but because they are such a good idea, everyone has been doing it for a while, and it becomes places that people automatically look. Some of those are in mattresses. I don't think anyone really does that too often anymore, because you do have to cut open your mattress and stuff, but don't put anything under the mattress, between the mattress and the box spring or anything like that. It's a place where people look. It's too easy to look. You just flip it over or slash the mattress open or something, and it's just too easy to find there. In the freezer, at some place, it seems like a good idea, but it's another place that people check because it has become kind of a common hiding spot. In book safes on a bookshelf, they're cool. I really like the book safe idea, and it can be used for some things, but I wouldn't put anything super valuable in there because a lot of thieves have gotten used to, they know that idea is out there, so they just dump over any bookshelf that you have and see what's in there. So it may be sort of a good place to keep some things. I wouldn't put anything super valuable in there. And the fish, same with like a fish tank or a pet tank, may be harder to check. If it's some sort of pet that may attack you, like a python or a rattlesnake or some sort of ferocious beast, then it may be a good idea to keep something in there. But something like a fish tank or even a litter box, I think it's a lot of it's a place where people think of hiding a lot, so it's a place where people think of checking a lot. And same with pictures and paintings, behind the pictures and paintings. If you have an excessive amount of pictures or paintings in your house, it may be a good idea, and that's one of the principles I'm going to go back to later. But if you only have a couple pictures sitting around, it's probably not a good idea to put anything there. It's just too easy to check them and cut the paper open in the back or bust them open. And so I wouldn't necessarily recommend putting anything physical in there, maybe some paperwork or something, but that would only, nothing with any real value. And another thing I'm going to mention, I'm not going to say not to do this, but burying things, you have to be careful with it. It's something that you shouldn't just automatically assume it's a good idea, because it's a terrible idea in a lot of situations. If you have a huge rural property, it can be a great idea because, as long as you remember where you put it, because no one's going to be able to find the thing out there. If you've got a little tiny 1/10 of an acre backyard with some nice grass, and it's going to be obvious for a long time where you buried something, or there's just not that many places to bury it, it may not be such a good idea. Just hide something in the house. But if you have like a big rural property, like I said, no one's going to see you digging it, no one ever is going to find it, then it might be a better idea to have some kind of cash buried. But you just got to be careful with it. Also, the toilet tank, that's a terrible place to put anything. It's in movies, everyone thinks about it, think of checking there, and it's one of those things that is just too easy to check. It takes 5 seconds to lift up the thing and look in the top of your toilet and see if there's anything in there. So if it's some place that people may think to check, you got to at least make it difficult on them, like, I don't know, have a little more involved than just opening up and looking in. Another thing that people use, another location that they use to hide things a lot, is you unscrew the plate on a light switch or an outlet and maybe hide something back down in there. Now you have to be careful not to electrocute yourself, obviously, doing that, and it is a relatively common place that people would think to hide some things, but it also takes a little bit longer to check, and there's a lot of different outlets in a house. If I was going to do that, I would only do like 1 outlet or 2 in the house. You don't want to have something in every outlet, because then if they think to look at even one, they'll find something. And I would use an outlet that was hidden in maybe in the garage behind a tool chest, or in your room behind a nightstand, and preferably one that has stuff plugged into it too, so it looks like it's being used, and it would just not cross someone's mind to use that location. But I think you can come up with a better location than that anyway. Alright, so now that we know some of the places that we probably shouldn't be hiding things, I want to go over the principles of what you should be looking for when you're trying to find a place to hide things. And there's a couple different like techniques you can use that will make it a lot harder for people to find things. One of those things is to hide in plain sight. I've heard stories of people who have taken a 100-ounce gold bar, sewn a little like fabric sock on it, and used it as a doorstop, or no one ever would think to check there. A lot of times people have had this stuff, they've been robbed, and they said that they've had like a gold brick, or not gold brick, but a silver brick sitting on their desk and as like a paperweight, and people just don't notice it. They're looking for valuable things in specific places, and if it's just sitting out in the open, they're not going to notice it. Now, I don't recommend just leaving something sitting out on your desk like that because that's too risky, but you can use the principle of hiding things in plain sight to kind of throw people off guard. And like I said, you want to cover it up like the brick used as a doorstop or something along those lines, where you can just kind of put it somewhere where people wouldn't expect to look because it's not too obvious, but because it's just, they tend to look right past it and go for hidden stuff. So by the act of not really hiding it, you can kind of keep somebody from even finding it. You may not even notice it. So you have to be careful with that because you don't want it to be too readily available. You want to at least disguise what it is most of the time, but you don't always need to bury it in a hidden safe underground for it to be safe. You can just have it sort of disguised and put somewhere normal, and a lot of people would never notice it. Another principle is the needle in a needle stack principle. Now, you've all heard the saying, it's hard. The only thing harder than finding a needle in a haystack is finding a needle in a needle stack, and you can sort of do that also by putting something that you care a lot about or you're trying to hide amongst a bunch of other similar things. Or like I would mention with the picture frames earlier, if you're going to hide something in a picture frame, if you have hundreds of pictures all over the house, it's a lot better of an idea than if you have one or two pictures, because even if someone got it in their head that something's hidden in those pictures, it's going to take them so long to go through all of them. And some people have been known to put papers or money or important documents in like a DVD sleeve. And if you had 4 DVDs on your shelf, maybe that's not a good idea. If you have 4,000 DVDs, it's a lot better of an idea because no one can ever find it. It's not necessarily going to be protected from fire and things like that, but a lot of hiding places aren't anyway. So that's sort of a separate concern. Same with the book safe. If you have a shelf or a desk that has 5 or 10 books on it, it's probably not a good idea to put a book safe in there. If you have a library room with thousands of books, putting something hidden in a book is probably pretty safe because no one in their right mind, and even people who aren't in their right mind, are not going to be able to find one book out of 10,000 or even several thousand. And it would have to be a freak occurrence. So it's a lot safer in a situation like that than if you just have a few of them. So that's kind of the needle in the needle stack principle. Another one would be what I call double secret probation. And really what I'm talking about is just a double hiding something. So you hide something and then you hide it within that hidden place. So if you have like a secret safe, then within that secret safe you have like a false floor or something like that. Or if you have a hidden room, then maybe there's a hidden floor in that hidden room, so that if someone gets into that secret place, they say, oh, I've got it. And it's probably a good idea to, within that initial room, put something semi-valuable, like maybe some cash or some change, or what looks to be like important paperwork, but stuff that people probably aren't going to steal, like just personal paperwork, maybe passports and stuff like that. So they'll think they found the stash when really there's a second hidden compartment within that stash. Or if you had a secret room, then within that secret room you have an item that within that item is hidden something else. So, but it looks innocuous. So even if someone manages to break into your safe or break into your secret room, then they still may not or probably won't find whatever it is that you're looking for. And that makes it really difficult for them to find. Another thing, and this is one that I really like, is that people are always looking for opening things up and looking for things hidden inside them, but there's a lot of things that just never seem like they would open up, or that they seem like they're solid items. And I like hiding things inside what seem like solid items, because you would just never think, people just never think to start opening them up. And even if you thought maybe someone could be hiding something in there, you don't know which of them to start. So you can mix principles like that, like hiding inside a solid object, and then use the needle in the needle stack principle. And I'll show you some examples of that right now. So what I've got right here is the trim board on the side of my doorway. Now these, as anyone who's ever done any sort of construction work knows, these are pretty easy to get on and off. They just tacked in with some little nails, and you usually have molding type boards or trim boards along the entire length of your house too. And you could pop one of these off and use like a router or some sort of bit to create indentations in the back of this board where maybe, you know, like a thumb drive or several gold coins could fit in those slots, and then just tack the board back up onto your house, and it would be pretty secure. And even if someone got in their head that maybe you're hiding something there, you've got hundreds of feet of this board all over your house and it's attached on there. So not only would it take a long time for them to pull all this off, they may not even find it to begin with. And it uses the solid item principle and the needle and the needle stack principle. And if you had a secret room or something, or a basement that you like block the door off to, and then you had the trim board in the secret room and hiding something in there, there's just such a small chance that anyone would ever find that without you telling them about it. So here's my bookshelf. I think I've shown you guys this before when doing my survival library book review video a while back. Now this is not what I would consider enough books to justify hiding something in a book safe, because this entire shelf you could just grab it and tip it over and dump it out. Now if you had multiple bookshelves like this in the same room and maybe they were attached to the wall, and it would just be very difficult, you'd have to individually like pull every book off the shelf to, you know, open it up and check, then I would think about doing it. But what I wouldn't do is I probably wouldn't buy the store-bought book safes, because when you look at them from the top like this, they're not the same, and you can usually tell, even if they're good, and there'll be some fake bogus book anyway, and they'll stand out amongst a bunch of normal books that you have. So I'm going to do a video in the future about how to make your own book safe out of a real book, and it will blend in a lot better. And so even if it does fall over, you'll see pages flapping and stuff, and they still may not notice that it's a book safe. So your chances of being discovered are even less likely. Here's another thing that would fall under the solid item principle, and I really like furniture and wood because it's easy to work with. The average person with a drill or something like that can make a compartment in a piece of wood, and it's something that people just don't really think of looking inside. You wouldn't normally think that something could be inside the solid leg of a table or something like that. Some people might, but again, how much furniture is in the average house? And it could something small like a roll of gold coins or a thumb drive or something like that could be anywhere in any part of any piece, and you'd really have to bust it up with a sledgehammer to find out. So you could take this leg off and drill a compartment in it from the bottom or from the top, and then you could screw the leg back in and you'd never be able to tell. And if you're making your own furniture, you could even make a compartment under the laminate, not just at the top or bottom of the leg, but right in the middle of it, and then put the laminate over that. Obviously, these ideas aren't going to be very useful for something that you have to get at often, that you have to pull in and out, but stuff like gold coins that you know you're not going to need every day or even every 6 months, you're just going to leave them in there until you need it for one specific purpose. Something like that's a good idea. See, right here, I would consider this to be enough DVDs to have a piece of paper or maybe even some money hidden in one of the sleeves of one of these DVDs, because there's just so many that it would take so long to go. You literally have to open up every single DVD, and there's probably, I don't know, 500 or 600 DVDs here, and that would just, people just aren't going to be interested. So I mean, because even unlike the books, if you dump this over, they're not all going to pop open. You'd still have to go through and physically open them up. Not only would you have to physically open them up, you'd have to physically check inside the plastic sleeve behind the thing there. So, well, I don't necessarily think don't think you should put anything too valuable in there, simply because someone could grab it or borrow it or something you may not remember. It may not be a bad idea for important papers that you don't want anything, which is secret information, and not necessarily cash, but just something that you want to keep hidden. Another one I've seen people use, and this kind of goes along with several of the principles inside the solid object, almost hiding in plain sight, and sort of needle and needle stack, is a lot of these doors, it's not really a solid object. They seem like it, but these doors are hollow core doors for interior, and you can take off the handle here, tie something onto it that will hang inside the door, and you can fish back out later. And that would take a considerable amount of time to take off the doorknobs on all these doors if you even thought about it in the average house. So the average crook, or even police or something like that, aren't going to be thinking to look in places like that. You can actually use your cat too. Since cats are useless and just sleep all the time anyway, you can kill it and taxiderm it and make a secret compartment in it. And when the crook comes in and sees it, they'll think it's just being a lazy bastard like cats normally are, and they won't know that it's a dead cat with a secret compartment inside of it. Alright, that may not work, but may give you a reason to eliminate these useless beasts. Alright, so here's another example. This falls under the solid object and the double secret probation principle I was talking about earlier. This is actually a shelf from inside a gun safe, and it's used, you just have pegs like any other normal shelf, and you sit it on there. As you can see, it's just a piece of press board, so you could use plywood or anything else, and a little bit of carpet. And you could take this carpet off, drill into this part way with a hole saw or like a router bit or something to make shallow indentations. You could even make this thicker piece of wood if you wanted a real piece of wood instead of press board. And then put a piece of thin laminate over top so that you can't feel the holes. Put your gold coins in there, a bunch of them if you wanted to. You could put 10 or 20 in here. Then put the laminate sheet down, and then put the carpet back on top of it, and then put this back in your safe as a shelf. So you could hide this multiple levels deep because you have maybe a hidden room or a hidden portion of your room. You have the safe within there. It could also be hidden in some, maybe look like a filing cabinet or something instead, or just put a box around it so it looks like a box with an open top and you pile junk on that, so it just looks like a box of junk. And then within the safe, which is hidden in the hidden room, you have this shelf. It just looks like a normal shelf. It's functioning like a normal shelf with maybe some boxes of ammo on it, and that's where your secret stuff is hidden. Now, there's almost no chance that someone's going to break through all of those levels of being hidden and then find out that this thing is hiding something within it too. So you want to make as many levels as possible between the people who would be finding it and the hidden object itself. Here's another example of hiding in plain sight that kind of better illustrates what I was talking about. Now, I'm not really hiding anything up here right now. This is just an example of a kind of shelf or knick-knack or curio shelf that you would find in most people's houses or offices. Of course, I come across weird shit like the Cockshan root tonic, sex booster tonic. When you go through storage units and stuff, you find a lot of weird stuff. So that was just hilarious. And then this thing is just a coin, a commemorative coin. It's not precious metals or anything, for the space shuttle launch. It contains metal that was flown on a space shuttle as a gift, so it's pretty cool, but it's not really worth that much. But this is kind of stuff that you see on most people's desks and offices and houses that you just don't even give it a second glance. This coin, this could be, a couple $1,000 gold coin sitting there, and no one would give it a second glance if you had it sitting up there like that. So no one would think that anything up here is really worth any money. And you could make a plaque on your wall that said, "Thank you to Mr. Lord Humongous for helping out with the so-and-so troop of the Boy Scout division," and have a coin sitting there with a paper plaque. And you could put a gold coin up there worth thousands of dollars on that plaque you made up, and no one's going to touch that. No one would ever know to look at it twice and think that that coin's worth thousands of dollars. Or you could then put that plaque within your safe, and someone would think that you're just keeping this out of sentimental value, and they wouldn't think that that gold coin is worth, or that coin's actual gold and worth thousands of dollars. So there's multiple things you can do, and I recommend using more than one principle at once to hide these things. Like I said, I'm trying not to give too many specific examples, but this is one that I think is worth mentioning, and that's you can hide, falls under the solid object thing and hiding in plain sight, and you can use a candle. Some of these Yankee candles and stuff like that that come in a jar, or even ones that don't come in a jar, and you can hide something within them. All you need is the jar, maybe after the candle's gone, then get some older candles and melt them down and make a compartment, maybe one of those tubes that they sell at County-Com that are waterproof. Set it in the middle, pour the melted wax around it, put the wick in the top, and you'll have a working candle with stuff inside of it that you literally have to chip out or break open. And if you use darker wax, you couldn't see a shadow of anything in there. Make sure it's not too close to the edge or come above the candle line. And most people have a bunch of candles in their house, so if just one of those or two of them has something in it, then people probably aren't going to think too hard about it. That's all I got for you today, guys. Just remember that none of these, or pretty much nowhere that you can hide anything, is going to be 100% safe from being found or being destroyed by an accident or a fire or something like that. But the more of these principles you use when making up hiding spaces, and the more you diversify your hiding spaces, then the less likely you are to have some sort of catastrophic loss. Now, the upside, like I said, of diversification is that it's way less likely that one person or one event will wipe out everything you have. But it's also problematic in that it can take you a long time to gather everything up, and you have to be sure that you remember where everything is. So that usually necessitates you having it written down somewhere, which would allow someone to find it. So if you can come up with some code or something like that and write it down somewhere, but I wouldn't try to memorize it if you have more than several hiding places, because missing one could just mean you've lost that stuff forever. And if you've hidden it well, you'll never find it. So just some ideas for you guys to think about. If you have any specific ideas or more principles to use when hiding things, or some good ideas that you've come up with. Don't give away all your secrets. We don't need to know where your stuff is hidden, but just something that maybe you come up with after watching this video or seeing other people do, then put it in the comments. Also put down in the comments things that you know that don't really work that well. Talk to you guys later.